So good morning everyone. My name is Abhay Singh and I welcome you all in today's video analysis of the Hindu. Today is 26th of July 2024 and we'll start with the news analysis. So moving on to the page number 1. So there is another major judgment of the Supreme Court. There is another major judgment of the Supreme Court. It is delivered by a 9 judges bench which is headed by Chief Justice of India Mr. D.Y. Chandrachud. Chief Justice of India Justice D.Y. Chandrachud. So basically, this particular case is related to the taxing right of the states. Taxing right of the states. Now, a 9 judges constitution bench headed by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud on Thursday held by an 8 is to 1 majority that Parliament cannot limit the power of state legislature to tax mineral bearing land and quarries. The judgment frees the state from restrictions imposed by the center is in tune with the federalist principle of governance. Any dilution in the taxing powers of the state legislature will necessarily impact their ability to raise revenues, which in turn will impede their ability to deliver welfare schemes and services to the people. The ability to state governments to invest physical infrastructure, health, education, human capacity, and research and development is directly correlated to the raising of government revenues. So basically, this judgment is related to the taxing of mineral bearing land and quarries by state legislature. So basically, as per the rule, central government cannot impose restrictions on such taxing of minerals and quarries by the state government, and this thing was made clear by the Supreme Court when they delivered this particular judgment, and they have clearly stated it that it is the absolute right of the state that how much taxation they want, how much tax they want to impose on the mineral bearing lands and quarries, because this is the absolute domain of a state. And this is also necessary because the state required certain funds to to invest in different kind of activities like infrastructure, health, education, and human capacity, research and development. These are various activities for which a state requires fund, and this particular thing like taxing mineral bearing land and quarries will help them in getting this particular fund. So that's why Supreme Court had stated that state government has absolute right to impose taxes on the mineral lands and mineral bearing lands and quarries. Now, the most important observation that was made by the Supreme Court in this particular case was fiscal federalism entails that the power of the states to levy taxes within the legislative domain carved out to them and subject to the limitation laid down by the Constitution must be secured from unconstitutional interference by the Parliament. Now, we all know what is the meaning of federalism. Federalism is basically the division of power between center and state. So now, what is fiscal federalism? So fiscal federalism is when the powers related to the division of financial revenues is divided between center and states. So basically, Supreme Court has clearly stated that there is fiscal federalism entails that the power of the states to levy taxes within the legislative domain carved out to them and subject to the limitations laid down by the Constitution must be secured from unconstitutional interference by the Parliament. So basically, fiscal federalism, what Supreme Court had stated that fiscal federalism enshrines very important principle that the state government has the power to levy taxes within the legislative domain, within the power they have been given by the Constitution of India. And these and the limitations on this power can be imposed by the Constitution in itself. This particular imposition cannot be made by the Parliament in an unconstitutional manner. So that's why this particular judgment becomes very important. The judgment was given by a 9 judges bench with the 8 is to 1 majority. 8 is to 1 majority. The judgment was delivered by Chief Justice of India Mr. D.Y. Chandrachud because he was heading this particular bench. The verdict noted that how mineral rich states as Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Odisha continue to have per capita income below the national average. The judgment said Parliament through the Mines, Minerals and Development and Regulation Act 1957 cannot restrict the states from legislating on the taxation of mining lands and quarries. So basically, Supreme Court has also said that the Parliament by virtue of Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Act of 1957, by using this particular act and the powers given under this particular act, the Parliament cannot limit the powers of states from legislating on the taxation of mining lands and quarries. So basically, Parliament cannot prohibit or cannot prevent a state from legislating means to make laws Parliament cannot stop a state from making laws on taxation of mining and mining lands and quarries. So this judgment is very important. And now next important headline for the day. So basically, the farmers who are protesting at Shambhu border have clearly stated that they won't be going anywhere. They will protest till the Haryana election. So basically, this particular protest is going to have a huge impact on the Haryana elections as well. That's why farmers who are protesting at Shambhu border has clearly stated that they won't move until Haryana Assembly elections. Now, minor raped at gunpoint from pushed from the fifth floor. AAP gets new office in Lutyens Delhi after High Court order. India bloc plans protest over CM's health on July 30. Top leaders to attend. So not important for us to at this particular juncture. This particular news is not important. Now moving on. Government doctors in Haryana to continue strike as the demands remain unmet. Dilip Joshi replaces Samrat Chaudhary as Bihar BJP chief. Again, these are political news, not important for us. MNS to go solo in polls, field up to 250 candidates. Again, this is a political news, not important. Actors redevelop property sets as a real estate record. So again, not important for the examination. Now, this particular news is very important, which is coming all the way from Jharkhand. That the Speaker of the Jharkhand Assembly or the tribunal, the Speaker's Tribunal in Jharkhand has disqualified two MLAs. One is from Jharkhand Mukti Morcha and another one is from Bharatiya Janata Party. So these two MLAs have been disqualified as per the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which talks about the which is basically anti-defection. So basically, what happened is in Jharkhand that two MLAs, one from Jharkhand Mukti Morcha and another one is from Bharatiya Janata Party. They have contested for the Lok Sabha elections. They have contested in the Lok Sabha elections and they have contested against their party candidates. So that's why they have been disqualified from the state legislative assembly for defecting from the party and violating 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which is anti-defection law. On the eve of the 6-day monsoon session, the Jharkhand Assembly's Speakers Tribunal, the Jharkhand Speakers Assembly Tribunal Speakers Tribunal on Thursday disqualified two legislators under the anti-defection law with the effect from July 26. Jharkhand Mukti Morcha leader Lobin Hembrom represents the Borio seats in Sahibganj district, where BJP MLA JP Patel represents the Mandu assembly seats in Ramgarh district. Both have been found guilty of defection under the 10th schedule of the Constitution. Speaker Rabindranath Mahato gave the verdict and disqualified both legislators from the assembly. The hearing of the defection has been going on for the past many days in the Tribunal of the Speakers, and the order was reserved on Thursday. Both the MLAs had unsuccessfully contested this year's Lok Sabha election against the wishes of their parties. So why they have been disqualified? Why they have been disqualified? So basically, they were the member of their respective parties, Bharatiya Janata Party and Jharkhand Mukti Morcha. So they were basically given the instructions by their respective parties that they will not contest in the Lok Sabha elections. Party will field some other candidates. So basically, these two candidates, fielded in the Lok Sabha election, though they have lost this particular election, but they were, stopped there by their respective parties that they don't need to contest in the election, but they contested. So this was a kind of going against the party lines. By going against the party lines, so because of this particular reason, they have been disqualified from the state legislative assembly. They have been disqualified from the state legislative assembly for violating 10th schedule of Indian Constitution, which is anti-defection law. Now, Congress worker killed by mob in Jalpaiguri, 5 arrested. Not important news. Intercaste marriage, teen girl's brother hack youth through that. Not important. It's basically first budget of Mohan Manji government pegged at rupees 2.65 lakh crore, named of BJP regime's flagship schemes changed. So basically, this is coming all the way from Odisha, that the first time Chief Minister of Odisha, Mr. Mohan Manji, has presented the Mohan Manji led government has presented the first budget of Odisha, and the estimate of this particular budget was 2.65 lakh crore. Last year it was 2 lakh 30 crore, and this year particularly it is 2 lakh 65,000 crore. Now the main thing which has been done under this particular budget, that the name of the so many schemes have been changed. The name of the so many schemes have been changed, which is a flagship program of this, which is a flagship USP of Bharatiya Janata Party, changing the name of the places and the schemes. Now, Kerala's diaspora oriented posting draws MEA Ministry of External Affairs flag. Days after Kerala government appointed senior IS officer K. Vasuki as an office in charge of external cooperation, the Ministry of External Affairs on Thursday reminded that the state government that they should not intrude into domains that are beyond the constitutional jurisdiction of the state. The Constitution of India, under the 7th Schedule, List 1, Union List Item 10, clearly specified that the foreign affairs and all matters which brings the Union into relation with any foreign country are the sole prerogative of the Union government, said official spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. So basically, this is one thing which is done by the Kerala government, and this is something which is uh, patented and prima facie unconstitutional, because what Kerala government has done, that it has appointed an ex-IS officer and an IS officer, Mr. K. Vasuki, as the official in charge of external cooperation. So he has been appointed as the in charge of external cooperation, the Ministry of External Affairs. So basically, he's appointed as the external cooperation, in charge of the external cooperation. Now, Ministry of External Affairs has clearly stated that, you know, this thing which has been done by the Kerala government is clear violation of the Constitution of India. Why? Because the Constitution of India, in its 7th schedule, list number 1, item number 10, clearly states that the matter related to foreign affairs or matter involving foreign states are the direct domain of the union government. Item 10 clearly specified that foreign affairs and all matter which brings the union into relation with any foreign country are the sole prerogative of the union government. So basically, this is clearly given in the constitution under item number 10, union list 1, 7th schedule, and under this particular item it has been clearly specified that all things are the domain of the central government. State cannot interfere into it. But by doing this, Kerala government has basically violated the constitutional provision, and I don't think so. This particular provision will sustain for a longer period, because this is the clear violation of the Indian constitution, and they have to take back this step. But again, at this moment, they have to. I mean, they have appointed officer in charge for external affairs now. Over 1 lakh cubic likely to be released from a KRS dam in the wake of heavy rain in the catchment areas. The water released from the Krishna Raja Sagar Dam across the Kaveri will be spread up to over 1 lakh cusics from the 70,000 cusics at present. So basically, 70,000 cusics, 1 lakh cusics of water will be released every day. After Krishna Raja Sagar Dam has reached certain level. अब क्या होगा कि वहां से पानी छोड़ा जाएगा 1 लाख क्यूजिक लीटर 1 लाख क्यूजिक लीटर अदर स्टेट्स के लिए. Karnataka wants to change the name of 4 airports, so this is basically given by the center. Happiness Committee to hear the case of Kerala judicial officers. Now, now we're moving into the editorial part of today's newspaper, and the first article is very important in today's editorial. First article is very important. We will give much of our time to the first editorial of the day. So there was a visit of Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He has visited. This was Mr. Modi's first bilateral visit after assuming the charge for the third time. And after assuming the charge for the third time, this was the Prime Minister's first bilateral visit to Moscow. And this particular visit was very much criticized by the United States of America. Why? Because this particular visit took place on the same day, on the same day when NATO summit was organized. So basically, United States of America has clearly shown its resentment, and clearly shown its discontent towards this particular visit. But again, now ministry has given an apt answer to the United States of America. Now we will look into this particular न्यूज़ आइटम वेरी केयरफुली. कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट आस्पेक्ट हैं, कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट डोमेन्स हैं, हम लोग उन्हें कवर करेंगे. फिर उसके बाद हम लोग नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल में मूव करेंगे. दिस इज गोइंग टू बी अ सिंपल ड्रिल. विल स्टार्ट. 2 weeks after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Russia, his first bilateral trip in the third tenure of the government, the dust from the storm it kicked up in the United States and Europe is only just beginning to settle. The evident warmth between Mr. Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin drew up sharp criticism from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and a series of statements from the US state, also a series of statements from the US State Department, the National Security Advisor, and the US Ambassador to India, expressing disappointment Now, so United States of America was not happy with this particular visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Moscow, and they have actually requested India that this visit should be rescheduled. And after the NATO summit was over, this particular visit can be rescheduled. But India was adamant that Mr. Modi is going to visit the Moscow as per their usual schedule. So this thing was not, was so much accepted by the West and the United States of America specifically. So they have criticized this particular visit. Now India has given an apt answer that New Delhi has asserted its freedom of choice, but has moved to allege concern that anything fundamental has changed in worldwide as a result of the Russia visit. It would be a mistake, however, to assume that nothing has indeed changed purely by examining formal outcomes. In many ways, Mr. Modi's visit was the message itself. So basically, the most important thing about this visit was that although there was, prima facie, we can say that there was no evident or major evident outcome of this particular visit. But again, we have to understand that this visit was in itself a kind of very important event, because this particular visit took place at the same time when NATO summit was taking place. And USA, United States of America, has clearly requested India to, reschedule this particular visit. But again, India was adamant that India has a freedom of choice when they want to travel, and what are the important dates, हमारे important friends कौन है, हम ये सारी चीज़ें अच्छे से हमें पता है. So Mr. Modi की जो visit थी, it in itself is a big event. इस बिग इवेंट पे अब हम ये देखें कि मॉस्को जाने के बाद हमें उस विजिट के क्या एडवांटेज हुए, so that is something very different. This visit in itself marked the importance of India in the current geopolitical situation. इंडिया की इंपॉर्टेंस क्या है कि हम एक कंट्री में चले गए, तो उसकी वजह से क्या हो रहा है कि पूरे वेस्ट को, पूरे यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका को लग रहा है कि हमें ये चीज़ नहीं करनी चाहिए थी, विच मीन्स दैट हमारे अब इंडिया का जो स्टेटस है ना, वो स्टेटस है वो काफी ऊपर बढ़ रहा है. इसी वजह से पूरे वर्ल्ड वाइड लोगों को दिक्कत हुई जब मिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी का पहला विजिट था वो मॉस्को ही था. टू बिगिन विद द फैक्ट दैट द प्राइम मिनिस्टर not earlier, it is significant. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine, he had decided not to go for an annual India-Russia summit in 2022 and 23, and the only public messaging revolved around Mr. Modi's "This era is not of war" statement that he made to Mr. Putin at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Uzbekistan in September 2022. While the war in Ukraine continues, the nature of the conflict has changed, and Mr. Modi's Moscow visit must be read in the context of how New Delhi sees the progress of the conflict. So last time when Mr. Modi met, the president of Russia, Mr. Vladimir Putin, at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Uzbekistan, when the meeting of SCO took place in 2022 in Uzbekistan, Mr. Modi last time met Mr. Putin at that particular place, and he has given a statement that this is not an era of war. This era is not of war. And at that particular time, the war has just begun, because the war began in February 2022, and the meeting took place in the month of September 2022. So basically there was not much of a gap. So उस टाइम पे इंडिया का कोई ऐसा स्टेटमेंट देना बहुत ज़्यादा उसमें क्या वो कंट्रीब्यूट नहीं करता. बट एट दिस पर्टिकुलर मोमेंट जब पूरा का पूरा वेस्ट ही यूक्रेन को सपोर्ट कर रहा है, यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका इज सपोर्टिंग यूक्रेन डायरेक्टली. So now at this particular moment, this particular visit becomes very important. अगर हम 2 साल पहले विजिट करते जो उसका जो डिप्लोमेटिक इम्पैक्ट होता, और जो अभी हमारा करंट स्टेट में जो हमारा विजिट है उसका जो डिप्लोमेटिक इम्पैक्ट होगा, दिस इज वेरी डिफरेंट. इसीलिए जो अभी का हमारा विजिट है ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. एंड इंडिया वॉज सो एडमेंट कि हम इस बार तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर, हमारे कंट्री के प्राइम मिनिस्टर विजिट पे जाएंगे ही जाएंगे. द रशियन आर्मी सफर्ड अ ग्रेट टॉल इन द फर्स्ट 2 years. There was a boast offensive on Kyiv, a gross miscalculation of the resilience of Mr. Zelensky's and Ukrainian defense, the desperate attempt at a draft for Russian youth that led to many Moscow elites to leave the country, massive military casualties, and the questions over the efficacy of Russian military hardware against the new equipment Ukraine was being supplied by the NATO countries. However, today Russia seems to be in the far better place for holding the status quo line over the area in Ukraine's east that it occupies, and has subsequently folded into its own territory with the constitutional amendment. So basically, now things are getting good for Russia. Initially, there were so many problems with the Russia that many people thought that Russia is using weapons of the Cold War era, and their weapons are not working properly. And Ukraine has always used this modern weapon. Why? Because North, the members of the 32 members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization are providing Ukraine with the modern weapon systems and all different things. But now Russia has started to take control of various things. Now Russia is actually is on the front foot in the on the front foot. Russia is on the front foot. अभी Russia front foot पे इस particular war में, और Russia is getting some positive results from this particular war as well. उसको वो एरिया मिल रहा है जिसको वो चाह रहा था, और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट करके उस एरिया को अपने में इंक्लूड भी कर लिया है रशिया ने. अब वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज नाउ पुश फॉर अ पीस प्रोसेस. अब क्या हो गया नाउ, ये पूरा वॉर का तीन स्टेज था. पहले स्टेज में क्या वो वॉर स्टार्ट हुआ, यूक्रेन वाज डोमिनेटिंग, नॉट यूक्रेन वाज डोमिनेटिंग बट एवरीबॉडी थॉट कि ये वॉर 4-5 महीने में कंप्लीट हो जाएगा, रशिया विल डेफिनेटली डिफीट यूक्रेन एंड इट विल टेक द रिक्वायर्ड टेरिटरीज. But the war continued for so long that it is still continuing. And more than 27 months have passed, but this war is not over. And the second phase was when the whole of the West and the NATO countries are providing arms and ammunition to the Ukraine. And now is the third step. And what is this third step? That everybody is going suggesting for a peace process. That there should be a peace between these two countries. Why? Because now every country has understood that they cannot defeat Russia actually. Because after providing so much of arms and ammunition, so much of financial aid, Russia is not affected much. Russia is not affected much. So that's why they have understood that it is better that things should calm down. So they have started with the Russia-Ukraine Peace Summit, which took place in Switzerland in June 2024 again. That particular meeting was totally futile because United States of America, Mr. Joe Biden did not take part in that particular event, which took place in Switzerland, Russia-Ukraine Peace Summit. And the most important thing is that that in this peace summit, this Russia-Ukraine Peace Summit, which took place in Switzerland, Russia was not invited. So stakeholder was not invited. I don't understand the idea of having such kind of meeting. Mr. Modi's visit was an acknowledgement that Russia has already weathered the worst, and that would be pointless for India to continue to rupture the annual summit to the detriment of its bilateral ties. The reference in the India-Russia joint statement now. This is important that Russia has already suffered the worst because of this particular war, and the whole of West is kind of supporting Ukraine. So if Russia is our good friend, then we have to stand with Russia. If we are not standing with Russia, then which indirectly means that we are supporting Ukraine, not supporting actually Ukraine, but we are not saying anything. So it will end of the day, it will indirectly affect the bilateral ties between India and Russia. And now we have to understand one more thing, that Russia is a good friend of China also, and we are not in on a good page. We are not on a good uh, note with China. So that's why this becomes very important for India to protect its bilateral ties with Russia. And this thing was very simple. This thing was very simple that it was always quite evident that India will choose Russia over the West. Why? Because Russia has been our most loyal friend from the time immemorial. Russia has been a very loyal friend. So we have to work on the bilateral ties. That's why this particular visit becomes very important. Now I already said that there is a love triangle. That China has good relations with Russia, India has good relations with Russia, but China and India do not share good relationship. Does not share any good relation or good friendship. So the importance of Russia is very great. So to protect this particular tie, this particular visit was very important. The reference in the India-Russia joint summit of the conflict around Ukraine as opposed in Ukraine. So now the using how the words are chosen, which also chosen for any particular speech or any particular press conference also becomes very important. Now the joint statement said that the conflict around Ukraine, not the conflict in Ukraine. Now why this conflict around Ukraine becomes more important, because when you talks about conflict around Ukraine, then you include Russia as well. But when you say that conflict in Ukraine, that which then it means that you are basically talking about Ukraine only, that there is a conflict that is happening only in Ukraine. But no, India has clearly given a joint statement around Ukraine because Russia is also getting affected by this particular war. So that's why this joint statement has clearly and clearly has this word around Ukraine, not in Ukraine. So there is a difference between around Ukraine and in Ukraine. Now, another reference showing appreciation for peace proposal in accordance with the international law and on the basis of UN Charter. So basically अभी पीस ट्रीटी होना ही चाहिए. यूएन चार्टर में भी पीस ट्रीटी के बारे में लिखा हुआ है, बट यूएन चार्टर में आर्टिकल 53 भी है जो एनिमी स्टेट को डिफाइन करता है. यूएन चार्टर में आर्टिकल 51 है जो कलेक्टिव और इंडिविजुअल डिफेंस की भी बात करता है। वॉशिंगटन ट्रीटी का आर्टिकल 5 भी है जो भी कलेक्टिव और इंडिविजुअल डिफेंस की बात करता है। नाउ द पॉइंट इज, हम नीड के हिसाब से अपने आर्टिकल्स को चूज करते हैं कि हमें यूएन चार्टर का कौन सा आर्टिकल कब यूज करना है। अभी तक हम लोग आर्टिकल 51 यूज कर रहे थे कलेक्टिव और इंडिविजुअल डिफेंस का। अभी हम लोग को क्या यूज करना है? अभी हम लोग को क्या यूज करना है? अभी वो जो पीस वाला राइट है ना, जो पीस वाला आर्टिकल है, उसमें बेसिकली पीस की बात की गई है। अभी उसका टाइम आ गया है अप्रिशिएट करने का। New Delhi has hesitated on the other requests from the CAIV as well, such as allowing Indian companies to provide construction, medical devices, and telecom infrastructure to the Ukrainian government. So basically, we are not with Ukraine. That's very much clear. We are not with Ukraine at all, because many a times Ukraine has demanded so many things from India, and we have clearly refused all the demands, like Indian companies to provide construction, medical workers, telecom infrastructure to the Ukrainian government. But again, we have clearly refused. We have clearly refused that we won't be, providing such kind of aid and supplies to you. So this was very much clear. The geopolitical signaling of the visit extended to the other spheres by going to Moscow days after cancelling his visit to Astana, Kazakhstan for the SCO summit. Mr. Modi showed that he was willing to forego a joint appearance with Chinese President Xi Jinping, but not with Mr. Putin. So we have clearly, we have clearly, because we missed this Shanghai Corporation Organization meeting. Mr. Modi skipped this particular meeting just to miss Mr. Putin. So it was quite evident that China is not important for us. Russia is important for us, because our priority is Mr. Putin, not Mr. Xi Jinping. This is the reverse. This is the reverse of Western messaging that has been calling on China to reduce its support to Russia rather than the other way around. So again, रशिया से पूरा बेस्ट जो है वो चाइना से भी रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा है कि आप लोग ना प्लीज रशिया को सपोर्ट मत करिए. The US's action in the past few years have also given many in New Delhi causes for pause. So basically, यूएस के भी एक्शंस कुछ ऐसे रहे हैं कि हम लोग का जो एक्शंस जो हम लोगों ने कॉन्सिक्वेंटली एक्शंस लिए वो बहुत जस्टिफाइड है. The Biden administration has forced AUKUS for nuclear submarines engaged Quad plus countries such as New Zealand, South Korea, Vietnam, and Philippines intensely. And during the NATO summit in Washington, that was held at the same time as the Modi-Putin summit, the US hosted the AP4 or leaders of Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea and Japan. With its refusal to make the Quad a strategic concept, New Delhi stands in danger of limiting its utility. So basically, why? Now, basically, after this NATO summit, there was another conference which was organized by the Washington, that was AP4. And now, what is this AP4? AP4 have four countries: Australia, New Zealand, Korea, and Japan, and United States of America has hosted the AP4. Now, there are four member of Quads: India, Japan, Australia, and US. Now, so basically, US has refused US has refused to give any strategic importance to Quad. Now, why this Quad was very important? The Quad was very important because it has countries from different continents and different aspects, different parts of the world. And Quad had only four members: India, Japan, Australia, and US. So basically, somehow US is trying to pressurize India. Somehow US is trying to pressurize India. This was a kind of punishment which is given by the United States of America. He thinks that USA thinks that it can do anything. So not actualizing the concept of Quad was basically a kind of a punishment that is given by the United States of America to India. That if you will not accept our terms, then we will not going to support you. ठीक है. और क्वाड का इम्पोर्टेंस तो हमारे लिए था ही. हमने ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट भी साइन कर रखा है. ठीक है. सो इस क्वाड का इम्पोर्टेंस बहुत था, बट अगेन क्वाड को कॉन्सेप्ट को एक्चुअलाइज करने में यूएस ने क्या कर दिया? मना कर दिया. अब इस आर्टिकल का थोड़ा सा लास्ट पार्ट पे हम लोग पहुंच रहे हैं. Finally, Mr. Modi's Russian journey must be considered in its geo-economic rather than just geopolitical context. Regardless of the outcomes on the battlefield in Ukraine, it is clear that Western sanctions against Russia will remain, and consequently, so will India's supply of discounted Russian oil as well. So, India is also getting a lot of benefit from Russia. And what are these benefits? That we are getting discounted oil? We are getting discounted oil. Earlier, the trade which was used to be between $5 to $10 billion had now, in 2023 in 2013-14, the bilateral trade between India and Russia was at between $5 to $10 billion. But now, presently, it is at $65 billion. It is at $65 billion. And why the trade has increased so much? Because of the discounted oil. India is importing a lot of oil from Russia. the spurt is unsustainable unless India develops a payment mechanism for the oil import. So basically, there's nothing bad about it that we are importing a lot of petrochemicals from the Russia. But we have to understand one thing, that the the usage of local currency has to be increased. And also India and Russia have targeted that the rupee and ruble transaction. The ruble is the currency of Russia. So rupee and ruble ट्रांजैक्शन वैल्यू विल ग्रो ट्वाइस बाय 2030. अभी इंडिया और रशिया के बीच में जितना रूबल इंडिया रुपी और रूबल का ट्रेड हो रहा है उसको जस्ट डबल कर दिया जाएगा 2030 तक. और जब हम अपने लोकल करेंसीज में इस ऑयल का पेमेंट करना स्टार्ट करेंगे, देन विल सी द एक्चुअल बेनिफिट्स कि हमारे एक्चुअल बेनिफिट क्या हुए हैं रशिया के साथ ऑयल जो हमने डिस्काउंटेड प्राइस में इंपोर्ट किया है. ठीक है. In addition, the joint statement on furthering cooperation in Russia's Far East focuses on increasing Russia's oil and LNG supplies from Russia, as well as much needed commodities export from India using the yet to be operationalized Chennai Vladivostok maritime corridor. अभी क्या हो रहा है कि चेन्नई रशिया और इंडिया एक मैरीटाइम कॉरिडोर डेवलप करने की बात कर रहे हैं, और उस मैरीटाइम कॉरिडोर की इंपॉर्टेंस क्या होगी वो भी बहुत ज़्यादा है. फिर हमें ऑयल वगैरह जो इंपोर्ट करने रहेंगे, वो एलएनजी सप्लाईज वगैरह जो होंगी ना, वो सारे चेन्नई व्लादिवोस्टोक मैरीटाइम कॉरिडोर से ही आ जाएंगे. अभी चेन्नई व्लादिवोस्टोक जो ये मैरीटाइम कॉरिडोर है अभी ऑपरेशनलाइज नहीं हुआ है. इट इज़ नॉट येट टू बी ऑपरेशनलाइज, ये अभी स्टार्ट नहीं हुआ है. बट ये जब स्टार्ट हो जाएगा तो इसकी इंपॉर्टेंस, जियो पॉलिटिकल इंपॉर्टेंस इंडिया के लिए बहुत होगी. अब जो रशिया की कंपनीज है उन्होंने कैसे क्या किया है, तो रशिया की कंपनीज ने बेसिकली एक फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रखा है $23 बिलियन का इंडिया में. और इंडिया की एक कंपनी है नायरा एनर्जी, उसमें भी एक मेजर इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रखा है. एक मेजर इन्वेस्टमेंट कर रखा है रॉसनेफ्ट ने. रॉसनेफ्ट एक रशियन कंपनी, रॉसनेफ्ट इज अ रशियन कंपनी विच हैज मेड अ मेजर इन्वेस्टमेंट इन अ गुजरात बेस्ड रिफाइनरी नायरा एनर्जी. एंड टोटल इन्वेस्टमेंट, टोटल एफडीआई ऑफ रशिया इज $23 बिलियन. और इन एक्सचेंज वी हैव आल्सो इन्वेस्टेड $15 इन रशिया. हमने भी $15 बिलियन रशिया में इन्वेस्ट कर रखे हैं, और रशिया ने $23 बिलियन इंडिया में इन्वेस्ट किए हैं बाय यूजिंग एफडीआई. सो दिस वाज दिस होल आर्टिकल. इसका इंपॉर्टेंस क्या है, इसका इंपॉर्टेंस बहुत है क्योंकि जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी का विजिट है, इट इज़ अ काइंड ऑफ सिंबॉलिक विजिट दैट वी विल नॉट फॉलो the dictates of United States of America anymore. We are an independent country, we are a sovereign country, we have our things of our own as well. We are there, we are mature enough to take the bold steps. So basically this particular visit was important in that sense. This particular visit was important in that particular sense. Now moving on to the next second important news headline for the day. And the second important news headline for the day is the Karnataka bill is a symptom of a larger problem. The Karnataka bill is a symptom of a larger problem. The Karnataka reservation bill has been panned almost universally and also generated so much controversy that the state government was forced to pause it and issue assurance. The Karnataka State Employment of Local Candidates in the Industries, Factories and Other Establishment Bill 2024, which was recently tabled and in a meeting. इसको कैबिनेट अप्रूवल मिल गया था दिस पर्टिकुलर बिल को. एंड आफ्टर दिस पर्टिकुलर information came into the market that the Karnataka state government is going to bring a bill, and by virtue of that particular bill there will be there will be a kind of reservation in private sector as well. 50% of seats will be reserved for Kannadigas in managerial post, and 70% of seats will be reserved for Kannadigas in non-managerial post. Now there are various impact of this particular action. There are various impact, and all the multinational companies, all the big companies, and Indian organizations, trade organizations have criticized this particular step because this will directly affect the productivity and efficiency of the big companies. So that's why this particular bill was criticized hugely. And after this after facing the protest from the entire industry, the Karnataka government has put this bill on hold. This bill has been put on hold by the Karnataka government, but yet we have to a different aspect of this particular article. India has the distinction of being the fastest growing large economy in the world and also has the largest youth population. This would be a happy circumstance if its growth model created a large number of jobs to productively employ its youth. Now, this is a accepted fact that we are going at a very fast pace. But there has been a problem with this fast paced growth, that our economy is growing at a fast pace. That is not a problem for us, but the problem for us is that जिस proportion में economy grow हो रही है उस proportion में employment नहीं बढ़ रहा है.
उस प्रपोर्शन में एम्प्लॉयमेंट नहीं बढ़ रहा है। सो ये बैकग्राउंड अभी हम लोग क्यों देख रहे हैं, यहाँ से बैकग्राउंड बनना स्टार्ट हो रहा है कि कर्नाटका में जो बिल आया, ये एक्ट आने वाला, जो बिल आने वाला था, ये आने वाला एक्चुअली क्यों था? क्योंकि इसका बैकग्राउंड क्या है, इकोनॉमी ग्रो कर रही है, एम्प्लॉयमेंट नहीं ग्रो कर रहा है, तो इसकी वजह से सारे स्टेट्स क्या कर रही हैं कि उनका भी तो अपने स्टेट के तरफ एक इलेक्टोरल मैंडेट है, उनकी वहाँ की भी जो जनता है वो भी तो उन्हें इलेक्ट करके लेकर के आई है। सो उनका एक क्या है, उन पे एक क्या अनसेट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, अनसेट अकाउंटेबिलिटी क्या है उनकी, कि वो अपने स्टेट में जितने भी लोग हैं, ऑल द कर्नाटकास शुड गेट द एम्प्लॉयमेंट, ऑल द कर्नाटकास शुड बी द प्राइमरी बेनिफिशियरी। ये एक बैकग्राउंड है, ठीक है। सो बेसिकली इस पर्टिकुलर चीज के लिए उन्होंने क्या किया था कि 50% सीट्स मैनेजरियल पोस्ट में, 70% सीट्स नॉन मैनेजरियल पोस्ट में रिजर्व करने की बात की थी। और अगर किसी पर्टिकुलर पोस्ट के लिए आप किसी को हायर करना चाहते हैं, सपोज इफ यू वांट टू हायर अ पर्सन एक्स फॉर अ स्पेसिफिक पोस्ट एंड ही डज नॉट हैव एनी काइंड ऑफ any of those qualities, no, which would allow you to actually hire him. So basically you will be given a 3 years time. In 3 years time you have to train him, then you have to recruit him. So basically this particular bill was, a very powerful kind of bill, because this will actually, end all the autonomy of private companies. They cannot hire someone which they want to, but actually first they have to see the criteria whether the person they are hiring is a Karnataka or not, if they are operating in Karnataka. So this will have the reverse impact as well, because many of the companies will shift from the Bangalore to some other part of the country again. अभी जो चाइना के साथ हुआ, चाइना वॉज द वर्ल्ड फैक्ट्री, चाइना पूरे वर्ल्ड में जितना भी सामान बनता था अभी तक, चाइना इज नोन एज द वर्ल्ड फैक्ट्री, बट नाउ द फोकस इज शिफ्टिंग फ्रॉम चाइना टू इंडिया. So this won't take much of the time. If they feel that their productivity is getting hampered, they are not able to perform efficiently because of this particular step of the Karnataka government, then they will definitely shift. So it will leave a huge dent on the Karnataka economy as well, because Bangalore is known as the Silicon Valley of India, and company always have this right when they can, where they can move from one state to another state. Now the high end service led growth model has delinked growth and employment. No, so basically this particular growth is mainly driven by the service sector. This particular Indian economic growth is driven by the service sector. That's why there was a less of employment creation, because the economy, if this particular growth would have been this like manufacturing oriented, or but the dominance is of service sector. That's why we are not able to see the actual growth in the number of employment as well. This situation is long in making. Globalization, financialization, and technological advances have allowed capital and a small set of highly skilled individuals to reap extraordinary benefit. Now this is the most important observation that is being made by this author of this particular article. And what is that particular observation? That only few skilled candidates, or only few skilled in the market, have utilized or incentivized or have reaped the fruits of this particular growth. Everybody is not able to take the benefit of this fast paced growth. Why? Because this growth was additional growth, was service oriented. So there are very few Indians who have reaped on this particular service oriented growth. Now the political repercussions of this trend are reverberating around the world. In developed countries, it manifests entirely as a backlash against immigration. In India, it is showing up in a part as a regionalism and a creation. While an argument for immigration has been made in the developed world by liberal parties, it has been largely been unilateral terms for the host country in addressing labor shortage for unpleasant jobs and offsetting aging population. While these global trends are significant, situation in India is different and more complicated. The constitution guarantees freedom of movement and the right to work anywhere in India. Domicile requirement of this nature seems to evoke uh, patriotism and militate against national unity. So basically, this will this will this particular step, this particular bill which was brought by the Karnataka state government, it was needed for the Karnataka. Why? Because there are very certain number of employees which a state can employ. ठीक है, अब वहाँ का जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो बहुत लिमिटेड लोगों के एम्प्लॉयमेंट को सपोर्ट कर सकता है, ठीक है। अब प्राइमरी बेनिफिशरीज कौन होने चाहिए? कर्नाटकाज होने चाहिए। बट क्या हो रहा है कि जो पूरे इंडिया से लोग जा करके, अब वो जो पूरा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलप किया गया, जो सिलिकॉन वैली बनाने के लिए सपोर्ट और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलप किया गया, उसके लिए कर्नाटका ने कितने ही सारे स्टेप लिए, बट उसका प्राइमरी बेनिफिट कर्नाटकाज को नहीं मिल रहा है। सो ये मेन दिक्कत था। बट अभी ये जो बिल आया, ये दिस इज दिस बिल प्राइमरली और फंडामेंटली दिस बिल is in the contravention of the few provisions of the constitution. Now what are those provisions of the constitution? That article 19 of our constitution guarantees the freedom of movement, कि आप इंडिया में कहीं भी मूव करके सेटल कर सकते हैं, एंड राइट टू वर्क एनीवेयर इन इंडिया ना, At the same time, the impetus for local reservation is an attempt by the state political leadership to be responsive of its own electorate. So basically, हर पार्टी इंडिया में, इंडिया इज अ डेमोक्रेसी, यहाँ पे जो भी पार्टी आती है वो चुन के आती है, स्टेट्स उसको, वहाँ के लोग उसको चुनते हैं। सो कर्नाटका के लोगों ने भी बेसिकली कांग्रेस को वो लोग उन्होंने इलेक्ट किया है। और उस गवर्नमेंट का प्राइमरी फोकस यही होता है, उसका प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टुवर्ड्स the citizens of the Karnataka, towards the residents of the Karnataka who are living in Karnataka, basically Kannadigas, so उनके तरफ भी कुछ अकाउंटेबिलिटी है। ठीक है, उस अकाउंटेबिलिटी को फुलफिल करने के लिए ये लोग बेसिकली ये बिल लेकर के आ रहे थे। आई एम सॉरी फॉर दैट, आई एम रियली सॉरी फॉर दैट। हाँ, ये बिल लेकर के आ रहे थे। अब इस बिल का जो नेगेटिव इम्पैक्ट है वो तो है ही है, बट बेसिकली वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि कन्नाडिगास का जो वेलफेयर है वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। ठीक है, at the crux of this debate is the question of federalism and political accountability. The politics of such initiatives come not from reservation of high skilled positions but instead mass unskilled jobs. It is notable that all local reservation initiatives adopt a graded scale with near universal reservation for unskilled jobs and at lower levels for high skilled tiers. This raises two critical questions: what impels large scale migration for unskilled jobs that could easily be done locally? And why is not industry opposition to local reservation limited to high skilled jobs, indicating a preference for migrant workers for unskilled jobs even when locals are willing and able? Now, basically, the point which this particular article is trying to make, that why there is a need, you know, uh, जो छोटे लेवल का जॉब है, जो छोटा जॉब है, उसके लिए भी लोग माइग्रेट करके वहाँ पे जा रहे हैं। दिस इज अ काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चन विच नीड्स टू बी आस्क्ड। ठीक है, और जो मैनेजरियल पोस्ट है उसके लिए तो जाने दीजिए, बट जो स्मॉल पोस्ट है, जो नॉन मैनेजरियल पोस्ट है जिसमें अनस्किल्ड लोगों की रिक्वायरमेंट है, उसके लिए भी लोग इतना माइग्रेट करके जा रहे हैं। बट अगर ये माइग्रेशन अगर छोटी जॉब्स के लिए बंद हो जाएगा तो ये बेसिकली एम्प्लॉयमेंट किसको मिलेगा? कन्नाडिगास को मिलेगा। उस तरीके से इसे रिलेट करके देखा जा रहा है। ठीक है ना, देर इज नो क्वेश्चन दैट ऑल स्टेट्स बेनिफिट इकोनॉमिकली एंड कल्चरली फ्रॉम बीइंग पार्ट ऑफ द लार्जर इंडियन यूनियन एंड दस हैव अ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू द entirety of the country and its people. However, the issue at the hand is too seriously or for simplistic rhetoric, political expediency, or mere outrage. Instead, the way forward requires a more expansive exercise. So basically, there is no question that all states benefit from economic and culturally being part of India. No, this is a kind of statement which we will discuss, and with this we will end this particular article. That this particular article, what this particular article is trying to say. This particular article is trying to say that always being a part of India is not beneficial for each and every state. Being a part of India is not beneficial for each and every state because you have to take the responsibility of the entire country. Now, Karnataka is not able to take the response. Karnataka is not able to provide the employment to its own people, but it is providing employment to each, but it is providing employment to almost every people from, not to almost every people, but people from all around the country. So this is the situation when you are a part of a big organization, when you are part of a bigger unit, then there are certain advantages and disadvantages as well, and that's what this particular article is trying to say. There is no question that all states benefit economically and culturally from being part of the larger Indian and thus have a responsibility to the entirety of the country and its people. However, the issue is hand is too serious. So basically, vice versa कि आप एक बड़ी यूनिट का पार्ट है, आप एक लार्जर यूनिट का पार्ट है. So if you are a part of India, then you have to look after the Indians as well. Now, Kannadigas are also part of India. Kannadigas are also part of India, and it will feel like कि हम अपने रिसोर्सेज को अपने बेटे के लिए नहीं यूज़ कर पाए, बट हाँ, हमने अपने पड़ोसियों के जो बेटे थे उनके लिए बहुत सारे रिसोर्सेज को यूज़ किया. एक वेग लॉजिक है, बट अगेन इट विल वर्क. यू विल अंडरस्टैंड विद दिस पर्टिकुलर एग्जाम्पल कि इसको बस ऐसे समझिए कि हमने किसी भी रिसोर्सेज को अपने लिए हम यूज़ कर सकते थे, बट हमने अपने लिए नहीं किया, और हमारे रिसोर्सेज को जो हमारे आसपास के लोग थे, आस पड़ोसी लोग थे, उन्होंने हमारे यू रिसोर्सेज को पूरी तरीके से यूटिलाइज किया. दिस इज द सिचुएशन ऑफ कर्नाटका. That's why they have brought this particular bill to provide 50% and 70% reservation to Kannadigas in managerial and non-managerial posts. Now, now this is the second time actually they are meeting. The External Affairs Minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar, and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yin. So basically, this is the second visit in last 1 month, and they were basically trying to resolve the standoff at a line of actual control, and they are taking steps for the same. Now, India rejects US criticism for Modi's visit. We have already discussed it, that we have actually disregarded
the whole remarks of United States of America, that we aren't going to tolerate these kind of remarks. We are a free and independent country. We can take steps for the betterment of our own country. Now this is important. So two halls in Rashtrapati Bhavan has been, their names have been altered, their names have been changed. President Draupadi Murmu has renamed two important halls at Rashtrapati Bhavan with the Darbar Hall. So Darbar Hall has been renamed as Ganatantra Mandap, and Ashoka Hall has been renamed as Ashoka Mandap. So this is a kind of important news that Ashoka Hall has been renamed as Ashok Mandap, and uh, Darbar Hall has been renamed as Ganatantra Mandap. Now, coming on to the business sector, so there is nothing important in the business section in today's newspaper. For our examination, there is nothing important. Coming on to the world part, it is time to pass torch to younger voices, says Biden. So after dropping from the elections of the U.S. presidential elections, after dropping from the race of the U.S. presidential election, Mr. Joe Biden has given a statement that this is the right time when the torch should be handed over to the young voices. And at the joint meeting of United States of America in Washington D.C., Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu has clearly stated that this is the right time that a global alliance should be formed against the Iran. And why this statement was given in United States of America, there are two main reasons. There was some conflict. There was a conflict between Israel and Iran a few months back. There was a conflict between Iran and Israel, and is sanctioned hugely by United States of America. That's why जब बेंजामिन नेतन्याहू यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका उनका विजिट था, तो उन्होंने ये चीज़ जाकर के वहाँ पे बोली कि दिस इज़ द राइट टाइम देन वर्ल्ड शुड फॉर्म अलायंस अगेंस्ट द ईरान. नाउ कमिंग ऑन टू द स्पोर्ट्स सेक्शन. अब आज से आपका ओलंपिक स्टार्ट हो रहा है, तो आज से आपके लिए चीज़ें इंपॉर्टेंट हैं. लोग टॉर्च बेयरर ऑफ इंडिया मिस्टर अभिनव बिंद्रा, टॉर्च बेयरर ऑफ इंडिया मिस्टर अभिनव बिंद्रा. He was India's first individual gold medalist at 2008 Olympics. He's a shooter. He's a shooter. Now, yeah. So with this, we have completed the news analysis of 26th of July 2024. We have started doing more comprehensive analysis as the exam is coming nearby. So please be focused. आप लोग तैयारी करते रहिए, पढ़ते रहिए. अगर कुछ भी इशू होता है, कुछ भी दिक्कत आती है, तो we are always there to help you. There is no problem. There is no need to worry. Success mantra is always with you. And if you have any questions, then do punch in the comment section. And thank you so much for watching today's video analysis. Thank you.